This is the title of my presentation. I have no idea what I'm doing. Lessons learned from building, implementing, and retooling a rules-based chatbot. It was inspired by this meme, but also it really reflected how I was feeling when I embarked. I didn't even mean to do that. I didn't plan it. On this journey, this thing I've never done, never seen. Looking at it, I'll show you a screenshot of the behind the scenes, and it makes you want to cry and maybe punch something because it's a little complicated, but that's how I felt. So I am Lauren Dodd, Associate Director for Information Services at the U.S. Military Academy Library. And my disclaimer that maybe some people can read, maybe they can't. Don't tell the government that I'm representing them. Like, what I'm saying is not representing. This meme does not represent the U.S. Army. Let's put it that way. It doesn't reflect upon the Army in a negative way. An agenda, as you can see, when I ran through this, I realized I had a lot of content. So if I talk like a chipmunk to get through it, that's exactly why, but this is where we're going. This is not an ad for SpringShare. They're not paying me. If they want to, if they catch wind of this, just message me offline, SpringShare. But this is not an ad for them. I'll give you a little bit of context for our library and chatbot. My original vision for implementing this and what reality actually looked like. Where to start on a project like this when you have no idea what you're doing. Lessons learned, insights, takeaways, good stuff, right? So some context for USML Library. Many of you may know about us because we come here a lot, participate in these things, but if you're not familiar, our primary user population are our cadets, faculty, and staff. We have 4,400 cadets. Their days are extremely structured down to the hour, minute, sometimes, but they are all within walking distance of the library. So it is probably the most on-site college population you could work with. We're an undergraduate institution, not graduate, no commuters, all that. We did implement LibChat from SpringShare during the height of the at the very beginning of the pandemic, March 2020. It was very hugely popular, but because we are so in person, usage has died down quite a bit, and we've changed our service model a couple of times to reflect that. We do receive many external questions via LibChat, which means anybody who's not in our core user population. So that is people now. We consider an external user one of our users if they have a question about West Point, graduates, anything that you can find in our archives and special collections. They are our user. We do prioritize the internal users, but they are still our users. We also get a lot of, my great-great-granddaddy once walked at West Point along the grounds and took a picture. Do you have that picture? Or just asking about service records or things that we don't have anything to do with because our mission is the curriculum and the archives and special collections and just everything West Point. We're not like the public library of the military, although we're flattered that people think of us that way. And we did staff LibChat as a separate service point until the beginning of this semester. So we had a front desk, a help desk, an ASC desk, and a virtual desk. It's a lot of desks. And we needed to consolidate a little bit. So context there. This is Chatbot. It is not artificial intelligence. They call it librarian intelligence. It's a 24/7 option for ready reference questions. It can be self-contained or direct users to live chat help. And just, I'm short of time, but just curious, show of hands or in chat, how many people have actually physically experimented with it, like behind the scenes? Has anyone done that? Awesome. Cool. Do you feel like it's not super intuitive to, okay, great. and just to be clear, I can't, there's no possible way for me to go into the deep dive, like, let me teach you how to build the chatbot here, but obviously I can share my takeaways and best practices and all of that good stuff. And if you see anything from our presentation, want to give me suggestions, if you want to go and experiment with our chatbot on our website, feel free to do it. I just ask that you use a username like test@test.edu so that I know to delete the transcripts and not mess up our statistics. But feedback is extremely, extremely, extremely welcome. I'm not going to read through this, but this is just an example of some of the different things that you can do as an academic library with Chatbot. Some of them we are not doing yet, and perhaps phase 2 of our project will go in some of these directions. Public libraries also can use this and use it for their purposes. So there are many, many possibilities and options with the Chatbot. This is what it looks like behind the scenes. Because Chatbot uses what they call a flow, and they consider each flow as kind of a complete interaction or conversation that will happen between your chatbot and the patron. We can have multiple flows on multiple widgets, but for now we really only have the one flow, and it's longer than this example right here. Flows consist of actions, things that the chatbot will say or do, and rules that you set in advance for what should happen if the patron responds a certain way. So you really have to dive into your if-then logic. So as you can see, going into this situation, winging it, not always the best strategy. Did I do it anyway? Yeah, a little bit. I did. But I have some tips for that as well. So this rolled out in March 2023 as a new feature of LibAnswers. So if you subscribe to LibAnswers, you automatically get free access to this. We already use LibAnswers and LibChat for virtual reference help. We have access to the FAQs, but we weren't using them currently. I had no sense of urgency to implement this at first. It's a nice to have, but it wasn't like I need to build this right this second kind of a thing. I've noticed as in my spying on other libraries, some have implemented it, some haven't, but it's there and available if you pay for LibAnswers. The first thought I had when I saw the chatbot was, I want to divert our external questions directly to LibAnswers tickets instead of LibChat, so that when we are staffing the chat, we are only interacting with our primary user population. The questions that we get from external patrons, either we're going to have to turn them away nicely, or if it's for our archives and special collections, that is not a chat-friendly question. That is a ticket automatically almost. So it's just easier to divert them straight to the ticket system and deal with them in an asynchronous manner. So this was my original vision for implementation. This is the kind of vision where I'm going to write a journal article about this, and I'm documenting all my processes, and I'm doing everything right. So assemble the implementation team. I did that. Discuss vision and stages of rollout. I had a phased approach. Okay, for phase 1, we'll do this, and then once we've done that, maybe we'll try these things. Over the summer, I thought, yeah, we'll use our existing chatbot data to focus on FAQs and build the chat flows. Summer 2023, again, gradual design, extensive beta testing with the team and cadets. And by fall, I was hoping we would have it refined. We would name it or have some kind of contest to name it and launch it with great fanfare. And this is what reality looks like. Or at least that's how I felt at the end as I dove into this and at the end of phase 1. So this is the actual timeline for implementation. March to October, procrastinate. Because there really was no sense of urgency. In September 2023, I'll just keep it super brief. You know, we became aware of some staffing issues. We had already been looking to consolidate virtual into help desk or somehow change that service point model anyway. That was a goal. It was a strategic initiative. So around September, when the staffing thing hit, I was like, okay, by January 2024, I'm going to implement Chatbot and it will take some pressure off of staffing the chat. So, but this is what I did. And November and December, work on FAQs. My colleague Laura is in the room. Shout out to her. She did a good chunk of that, and that was great. But there was also more procrastination and slight panic. Partially because I took a vacation and some other things happened and, you know, academic library life. And so I was like, okay, I will build this thing over Christmas, holiday break. There's no one here. I have all this time to myself. So here's the actual timeline. December 26th through 29th. I promise, my library director's watching. I promise I don't normally fly by with the seat of my pants that hard, but so this is what I did. So I built the beta chatbot. I had colleagues, Laura and several others who I will acknowledge later, test every single flow and offer feedback. I did a quiet launch because again, no one's around, no one's paying attention. I did still annoy a faculty member in the process. This is annoying because I thought a librarian was on chat, but actually they're not. Oh, I'm sorry, you're not supposed to even be looking at the website right now. So anyway, and continued refining it. January 2nd through 8th, again, still part of our holiday break. And then right before I went on another vacation, which why did I do any of that? More testing and refinement. And the version that I published on January 8th is largely what we still have and without fanfare, without marketing, because, you know, it's here, it exists, but I'm not ready to like go super hard on it, especially as I think about the next phases of this. So I did it, it exists, it's alive. It still has no name, but you know, that's a phase two project, right? So we just call it Use My Library Chatbot, and I'm just gonna live with that and it's fine. And I have been living with it. So where to start when you don't know what you're doing? I love the television show, The Good Place, one of my favorite shows. I just really felt this moment right here. So not gonna fully read these out because I'm about to go point by point, but this is in hindsight, the best practices, but I can tell you that now as I have this learned experience. So your why really is everything in this project or any other that you want to undertake like this. And you can backward design from there. Because our goals are not going to be your goals, and every community is different. And the way we've done our chatbot, I've not seen anyone else do it that way, but we have a very specific reason why we did. So our phase one goals were to assist and alleviate the implementation of a new staffing model, which is staffing the chat at the help desk when we're already triaging all of the rest of it. And I'm trying to make sure that there's a little bit of a line of defense there to kind of help people out in the transition. Divert those external inquiries from chat to the asynchronous help tickets, and connect our cadets, faculty, and staff with pre-existing resources when live chat is unavailable, offering multiple avenues of assistance. And I nailed it. Created patron categories with responses unique to each user group. So essentially, I have a flow for cadets, I have a flow for faculty staff, I have a flow for our garrison tenants, complicated story. And then I have an other. Everyone else who is other never sees the light of day. They never see the chat. They can submit a help ticket, but they can't get to the chat. And when the chat is online, our user population, cadets, faculty, and staff, they can choose the live chat as an option. When it's offline, the option is not available. So they're not tricked into thinking that they're going to get a librarian to chat with when we're not on chat. It's working really well that way. Analyze your existing data. Whatever it is you have. Thankfully for us, we had 3 years of live chat transcripts, and shout out to Sarah, our assistant director for assessment. She read every transcript and coded it and did that for us so that we could determine our percentage of complex reference questions versus ready reference questions. She split those into the categories to help us build the FAQs and the options for our flows. And she also created the data categories so it wasn't just the type of question, it was who asked it. So this really, really, really helped. Sarah's the real MVP. And this is just what it looked like when she kind of presented it. And so it kind of gave us an idea of the ready reference questions to plop into the chat flows. SpringShare resources. This is really, this is why I'm not going to go into the in-depth of how to build this thing, because their tutorials are fantastic. I cannot replicate that, nor should I try. And something that really actually inspired me, I watched this over the summer. Lauren Bradley's Welcome Stephen Bot. She works at the SUNY Maritime. She's a friend. It was a 20-minute presentation, and but she talked about how she did this all on her own, and it took her like just a few days, and she thought it was going to be this long, complicated process, and it actually wasn't. I'm like, thank you. So I planted that idea over the summer, like, okay, you know, if I have to do it on my own and do it this way, then I could, right? It kind of inspired me to be a little more fearless about it. And now that I've done it, I have no clue how anyone would actually do, like how more than one person could actually physically create it. Cause you can have a team for implementation, but I just don't have a sense of how it's so intricate. I just can't see multiple people working on a flow like that. So I also did some chatbot reconnaissance, and at the time, I could only find, a handful of examples here and there. And I just wanted to emulate, some of the best practices that I saw out there, design, marketing, and just general language. And here I am being sneaky and going through their chatbot flows and, trying out some of their options and seeing how they word things. So when in doubt, borrow from other librarians who are usually happy to let you borrow from them, right? Experimentation. Non-existent video montage of me thinking that I saved my work and having to start over multiple times. Because it took a little while to even figure out the right way to save within the flows. It's a little complicated. If you break one action with one of your moves that you try, it won't let you save it properly. So then if you try to save it, it's like, we'll just erase that stuff you just did and call it a day. And I'm like, but to avoid this, they have an original example flow for you. Don't edit that, keep that for yourself, but you can make a copy of it. And something I did was just make a lot of copies of flows so I didn't mess up the work that I wanted to keep. So when I wanted to diverge or try something, I was just like, okay, here's my stopping place from X date. And if I mess up this next iteration, I'll go back to this one. So that's kind of what I did. And have fun and break stuff. I did a lot of it. And I still did this in 2 days. So I will say, like, it's not intuitive at first, but once you get the hang of it, you really do get in the flow of things. Testing and refinement. I asked / voluntold, Laura can speak to the voluntold, colleagues to try out the flows. I made sure we tested every single possible option to avoid a flow to nowhere. And Laura and some of the other folks who did it, they even mapped out, okay, I went to this flow, it did this, why did it do that, should it do this? I received excellent feedback, and as a result, I added in options I had not considered previously because I'm one person and I don't have all the answers. And that's also why you shouldn't necessarily do it all on your own. So as an example, I had intended to create a separate widget that sent cadets, faculty, and staff straight to the chat when we were logged in versus giving them the chatbot options as well. And someone who might be watching, Erin, she suggested, well, why don't we give them a choice? Because maybe they don't actually want to talk to a human. Maybe they want to click through the options and do it themselves. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And cadets actually do primarily choose the chatbot options first before opting for live chat, which I relate to because talking to people. Or maybe they think they're talking to AI, even though I say that they're not. I don't know. But here are some of my lessons learned, AKA I failed so you don't have to. Come up with a system, especially for naming consistency, and document it as you go. I believe in knowledge management, but I failed at it. I started creating these flows, and then I realized I had to duplicate it, and so I would rename things, and then I had to name them again because it just got out of hand. And just come up with a system when you begin. Like, I am going to name this faculty faculty help ticket 1 or something. I mean, just come up with something because I really won that. And I will have to pay for it. I will have to fix it. Map out your flows ahead of time. What a great idea to plan. Instead of just kind of going with the flow, but it's working out. It's okay. Keep it simple. Lauren said this in her presentation, and I did not heed the advice because once I got in there, I was like, oh, I can give them this option and this option and this option and all the ways that they can get help. And they didn't need it all. They don't. I'm probably gonna have to fix that too. And it makes your flows more complicated. It's tempting to want to give all the options possible, but pare it down. Use all planning resources available to you. I will show you this handout that I've linked to that SpringShare provides. Why didn't I use it? Okay, sorry. This is about embracing imperfection, so I'm embracing it now as I talk to you about my fails. And try the look of Chatbot on multiple browsers and screens from the beginning. I knew what our chat widget looked like on our screens and browsers, but Chatbot did a different thing, and so I had to adjust the height of it at times, and I had to experiment with the text and the length. And I mean, I remember when Laura was going through some of the flows, and she's like, "Why are these options like not all showing up in the box? They're like, there's a little scroll bar, and it's really annoying." And I'm like, "Oh God, I didn't know it was going to do that." So it would be good to consider that from the beginning versus, oh crap, I made this and now I have to tweak it more. User experience 101. I think about it all the time. I am a big advocate of user experience, and empathy for the user is critical, and we're not the user. We're not going to use it the way that they use it. So just keep that in mind. And if I had to do it over again, obviously, I would test not just with colleagues, but obvious cadets, staff, whoever ahead of time, the user population. And we will do that for future phases. Absolutely. We've just launched a cadet advisory team, and I think this is the perfect task for them. But if you can do that ahead of time, you should do that. And this is the worksheet I was referring to that SpringShare gives you. How great would it have been? And I decided to use that. So great, so helpful, so relevant. But I learn by doing, and I am an experimenter, and I just had to get in there and do it that way. But if you are a planner and you follow to-do lists and worksheets, then this is the worksheet for you. Some interesting insights that I've learned. It's only been, what, 4 months, maybe not even fully 4 months. People instinctively type their questions first instead of their name, even though the first step is, what is your name? I've tried several variations of this. I can't change the order of operations, or I would. I just find it really interesting that I guess other chatbots have taught people, or maybe they're used to typing their question in the chat first. I don't know, but it is an interesting observation. For those of you who are going to go the extra mile like I did to make sure every single flow doesn't take you to nowhere, gives you more options. You're just doing all this careful work to make sure they don't end up in no man's land. Most users do not finish a flow, and like 98%. They click on the link they think they need and they leave, and they don't give you feedback, and that is fine. The only ratings we've gotten is from a bot, like an actual bot. It was quite judgmental. I'll show you the screenshot. And reading chatbot transcripts, because I read them, I come into work every morning and I'll skim what happened last night, see what people clicked through, what cadets were researching, because I can see that from their behavior. So lots of user experience data. I have tweaked language in real time. I have added things to our FAQs based on real questions I've gotten from people. So it is great for user experience and user insight. Some other interesting statistics. So I did a search for the same time period last year. We had 137 live chats. We've had 76 live chats out of a total of 335 chatbot interactions, which means they've touched it in some way, they've interacted with it in some way. You can see some of the options: ticket created, resource clicked. However, so that could be perceived as, oh, our live chats are down, that's a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing, because the other category, we have deflected or funneled or diverted 55 other inquiries, and that saved our staff time from interacting with that. So that is a win to me. And when I added up the number of normal chats that we would have from cadets and not other, it adds up to the same number, almost the same number as last year. So I don't think we're actually seeing a decrease in live chats from our user population. I've noticed from the statistics and just anecdotally, cadets overwhelmingly choose to try out the chatbot options as a first option before the live chat. Like they want to try the do-it-yourself version first, and that's great. But faculty staff tend to select live chat immediately if it's available, which, it's just interesting, different user behaviors, and you can't predict it. And just as a follow aside, if you see my two response options that are only different by a capital letter, this is what I'm talking about, naming conventions. Don't confuse yourself. The question IDs are different, but nonetheless, just treat yourself better than I did. And so here are examples of some of the things I was talking about. This is the language they'll see when they first click on it. I'm in beta testing. Thank you for your patience. What is your name is the first question they are asked, and they still just type in their question. It's very interesting. This next one I love, because what I can see from this is that they did a search of our FAQs, and they were searching for a term in our discovery search, what we call Scout. We have a status, an item status called not loanable. So they're asking, what does that mean when I see this in Scout? What does not loanable mean? So I'm like, whoa, we need to rename this term, or I need to create an FAQ for the terms you see in Scout, or a tutorial. I loved this. This is helpful to me. This is just another little bit of back end of what it looks like when you look at the chat transcripts. So you can see one of the top one got sent to live chat. You can see what I'm talking about with people not putting their name, even though they asked for their name. And you can also see two of those questions are from external people. So again, deflecting or diverting, we'll say. This is when the bot rated our chatbot, and they rated us a 1 out of 4, which I find really our first rating, and it was a bot. So this presentation for me became about embracing imperfection, because this is not how I would have chosen to do things. And so just in general, for any project, whether it's chatbot or something else that you're doing like this, do not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. No one else knows what the platonic ideal you're envisioning looks like. No one knows the fanfare you're planning, or the cute icons, or the name that you're trying to pick out, or any of the flows or your options. Any new service or tool can remain in beta testing for a while. Gmail was in beta for 5 years. So that beta is going to stay on there until I'm happy with the chatbot. I've learned that phased approaches are really a great way to ease into a new service, and you can use what you learn from phase 1 to inform the next phases. Small incremental goals are progress, and they can lead to bigger wins. And it's okay to blow it all up and start over if you need to, because I probably will this summer. I'll probably blow it up. And these are my acknowledgements. My colleagues who did all of this work, the individual flows, Sarah, Laura, Jen, Aaron, many colleagues did volunteer to be on that original implementation team that met once and died out. And my library director for cultivating a culture of experimentation, overall support, and not restricting my meme usage in this presentation. And again, this is a screenshot of what it looks like when you try it. If you guys do go to our website, library.westpoint.edu, and try the chat, like I said, just use test names and test emails so that I know to delete your transcripts. I wanted to save room for questions, and I did have time. So questions? After all that.
I have a question. So I know you said this wasn't a commercial for SpringShare and they're not paying you. Full disclosure, we use a whole suite of SpringShare things at West Point. But I know they cannot be the only people who create a chatbot or something similar. Do you have, and on your resource page, are there other suggestions for people?
I don't.
As the Go says, or are you aware of other things that probably work similarly, but not exactly the way you did it?
I don't, and I should have given you an actual question as a plant that I could answer.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. No, it's okay. I actually don't. I'm not aware.
That's going in my review.
No, I think that's a great question. I haven't done the research. Something I did do, and I cut out some slides for time. I had an article that someone wrote that was like the perfect vision of what I would have done, and all their cute little statistics and all their cute little user testing and all that great stuff. So those resources are out there, but I know we're all librarians. So I was like, okay, they can go to the literature. There's probably more written about it now that it's been out a year. Oh, we're at time. one last
I
question? Yeah.
I have a quick one. Do you ever give links as answers in the chat?
Mhm.
And do you have them coded to open in a new window or tab?
I
used a bot once and every time they would send me yeah, it's here, I would forget to do the like right click and I would click on it and then it would close the chat.
Mhm.
And so I was just thinking, if you find that like nobody is finishing your flow, maybe they're being diverted away.
It's great. I haven't bought it in a while, but they should open in a new window. I think the only thing that doesn't right now is I can let them search their FAQ within the chatbot, but everything else should open in a new window, because I agree. But I think they don't go back to the chatbot window, maybe is what happens. Good question, though. Anything else since Carolyn gave me the sign? I'm happy to talk to anybody about any of this, especially if you decide to implement it at your library. But I encourage you to also check out the resources of people who did a more planned job. But again, this is about embracing imperfection and trying new things and breaking them and trying again. So thank you.